Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about domain and range from a graphic perspective. And to begin with, I'd like to share the idea of what a lower bound and what an upper bound is. So let's jump to it. So let me give you an example. Suppose that you were going to go out on a date and you know that the Uber ride was going to cost you $20. So these $20, that would be the minimum amount of money that you would have to waste. And let's say that the maximum amount that you have in your bank account is $100. And let's say you don't have a credit card. So once you reach those $100, you're not going to be able to spend any more money because your bank will decline whatever transaction you're trying to make. So basically, if you waste the money that's here in this shader region, then you would be good and you won't have any problems with money or money issues. So here, your minimum was 20 and your maximum was 100. So your upper bound would be $100 and your lower bound would be $20. And let's say X is the quantity or the amount of money that you're spending. So as long as you spend within $20 and $100, you would be good. And this idea is exactly more or less what domain and range is. So let's begin with getting the domain of a graph. And just to recall, the domain is the set of all x values. So first, I want to just focus on getting the domain, and then we'll focus on getting the range, and then at the end, we're going to put it all together. So let's take a look at the first example. So here it says, find the domain of the graph. So my graph is this picture that's in green. And now, since I'm trying to find the domain, I'm only going to focus on the x-axis. I only want to look at these values, and I want to get my lower bound, and I want to get my upper bound. And remember, when we established the concept of a number line, we said that we would read the line from left to right, from least to greatest. So now, I know this is impossible to do in your worksheets, but maybe you can get into the habit of maybe doing it with your mind. And let's just ignore this y-axis because it's not going to play a pivotal role in getting the domain. So let's find our lower bound here. So let's begin with the endpoints. In my endpoints, I have one to the left and I have one to the right. Now we also have to pay close attention to whether we have a closed circle or whether we have an open circle. So here, our lower bound is going to be basically emphasized with this vertical line here. And you see that my lower bound here is going to be 2. Now, if we keep going right, let's see where our graph stops. So we go, and look, it stops at 5. That's where our graph ends. Since we have a closed circle, we can kind of imagine a solid vertical line cutting through here. Now, these lines are not necessary, but they're kind of, I'm drawing them just to emphasize that we have boundaries on our x-axis from left to right. So now we can imagine just our general x being squeezed by these two boundaries. By this one and by this one. So we can write it as less than or equal to 5 and greater than 2. Now here, the less than or equal to basically refers to the closed circle. And here, the strict inequality, just less than, refers to the open circle. So again, the less than or equal to comes from this closed circle, and the less than, just the without the equal, comes from this open circle. And this right here, that would be the domain of this function, or sorry, this graph. That's it. So let's do another example. So now right here, again, we're just trying to find the domain. So again, I encourage you to kind of just ignore the y-axis here. So here I'm going to do my best to kind of just delete it. And because all I want is my x values. So here, let's ignore our y-axis for now. And the domain is basically the set of all x values. So now I have to find my lower bound and my upper bound. So here, since again we're looking at the x-axis, we have to read from left to right. So starting at the left, I have to start looking for what my lower bound is. So if we go, we see that we encounter our lower bound right here. And so our lower bound is going to start here at -2. And now notice that here, this is a continuous portion of the graph, which is still solid. So we're going to consider this to be a closed point. So now we can kind of imagine drawing a solid vertical line here. So that's going to be my lower bound, which is -2. And then we have to find our upper bound now. So we go, and here our graph is still moving. So we go, and right here our graph ends. It ends at a +3, but now we're going to cut with a dashed line because we have an open circle here. So we can kind of draw this upper bound, and my upper bound is +3. So now for any general x, and x is going to represent my domain, we can squeeze it between these two values, between 3 and between -2. So now the -2 is associated with a closed circle, so we're going to write less than or equal to x, and then here this +3 is associated with an open circle, so we're going to write a strict inequality, basically just a less than without an equal to symbol below. So our domain is going to end up being -2 less than or equal to x less than +3. All right, let's do one more. Let's try this one now. So again, we're trying to find the domain. So we have to focus on the x-axis. We have to find our lower bound and our upper bound. So let's try to do this one without erasing the y-axis. So again, if we start from left to right, we're going to go, we're going to find our lower bound. So we keep going, and you see right here, that's our lower bound right here. We have a closed circle, so let's cut through it with a vertical line that's a solid vertical line. So this is -2. And now we have to keep going so we can find our upper bound. So here the graph is still moving, it doesn't stop. We have to keep going to the right, and here our graph ends. It ends at +4, but we have an open circle, so we're going to cut through it with a dashed line. So now we can create this upper bound, and our upper bound is going to be +4. So for any general x, or x values, or the domain is going to be squeezed between -2 and +4. So the -2 is associated with a closed circle, so we're going to write less than or equal to. On the other hand, our upper bound, this 4, is associated with this open circle, So we're going to write a strict inequality, just less than. So our domain is going to be -2 less than or equal to x less than 4. Alright, so please try the practice problems, and if you're struggling with them, please give me feedback, email me, and I'll do my best to give you the best possible help.